Now we go to the back of the vehicle, and as you can tell, the bed has actually been cut as well. The fenders have been removed to make room for the bigger tires, and they obviously, to get the ride height the same. The leaf springs have actually been reversed. Okay, so what it means is the axle would sit on the leaf springs, and now what we've done is we've moved the axle, or no, they would sit there, and we've moved them above it so they actually ride on the reverse side. So that's how that's all done up in the back here. The bed has actually been raised up in the back too. You can probably see further on over here that the gas tank is in the back. Obviously we have to move the bed on the inside up because you've got the axle in there and the differential. The exhaust runs all under there. So by doing that, it gives you that extra space. Obviously you don't have full use of the bed, but you're not really going to do that in this thing anyway. The really cool part is I still have, these are the tires when I picked up the vehicle a long time ago. These are Gillette Executives, and from what I understand, they stopped making these in the late 50s. So these are the original bias ply low profile tires. When I was driving on them, they still held air. They still did really well. The problem is you can tell the difference between modern tires and the older tires is these things would bend and warp and wiggle the whole time. So as you're driving, and you notice in the old movies where they're moving their arms back and forth, they're basically going from, it's hard to explain, but it's kind of like knocking it on both sides because the wheels would actually move and follow the road, and the car would wiggle a lot. So in order to keep it straight, they would start drifting, and you would bump it back, and then it would kind of go the other way, and then you would hit it the other way and bump it back to try and keep it in line because these tires were constantly moving. The modern steel belted radial tires today, obviously they don't do that. You don't notice it, they track straight, they're really nice. But these were pretty dangerous because they would bend and warp under the conditions when you're turning. They would actually slide on you and move. This one is actually patched a couple of times, I believe, inside of here. The guy had actually sanded it down a little bit, and then he painted this white wall on there because the white wall originally was a lot smaller. So he wanted the thicker white. So obviously I got the steel belted on there now that have the old look to them. And they worked well. I found an old tool chest that was, I don't know how old it is, but it looked pretty neat. Still has some old tools in it. So I just mounted it in the back. So an old saw, some old antique tools, keep in the back, just in case you ever need them. So just kind of gives you a look at the vehicle a little bit. It's kind of cool. Not that it matters. You never know when you got to dig yourself out of a ditch. But that's the bed for you. They have the holes for the stakes still. Actually, the wiring in the back is actually really kind of neat because we wired back for the tail lights. There's actually a wire coming up, and inside this tube there's little LEDs back here too that light up, so they fit perfectly right in there, which is really kind of neat. So you get two sets of tail lights, and then there's also a third mounted tail light in the back for safety. So yeah, this thing is fully street drivable. You get no problems, no issues. Cop pulls you over, you have directionals, you have seat belts. Not that I believe you are absolutely required to have seat belts on a car. I believe they're grandfathered in, at least in the state of Illinois. Please let me know in the comments because I have no idea, but I drive them anyway. Because I've got a 1929 that didn't come with seat belts. And in the 20s, they didn't have seat belts back then, so it doesn't have it. So I drive without it. It doesn't even have turn signals. So I've never been stopped, never had a problem. So obviously I don't drive them that much or go very far. I'm not going across country in them, but so far I've never had an issue. Which is kind of cool because they know I'm going to a car show or I'm just kind of cruising around, around town, stop over at, Home Depot or something like that to pick up some supplies, throw it in the back of the truck. I'm not going far. So that's it. That's the 1948 hot rod pickup truck for you.
Is it for sale?
No.
Okay.
It's not for sale. I enjoy this one a lot. I've driven it a lot. I think it was last summer or the summer before, I probably put, 600-700 miles on it, back and forth to car shows just around town. Just had a blast in it. One thing I did have to do in the slush box transmission, that I call it, it made a lot of slushing noises, but I did drain all the old fluid out of it, and I put brand new stuff. Made a huge difference. If you ever start hearing whining noises, they start feeling funny going into the gears, by all means drain it and put new fluid in it. Makes a big difference. Those transmissions can handle a lot. Obviously they're really old. They've been through hell and back, and they still keep going. That's what I love about a lot of this old stuff is, again, they're built to survive stupid. So they can handle through me, and they keep ticking, and all the other owners previous to it. This used to be a farm truck. I believe the story was it was a farm truck that was parked on the side of a barn in Minnesota and just left there. And the guy who bought it years ago saw it on there and just asked if it was for sale, and bought it for a couple $100 and decided to build a hot rod. So he got started with it, and then his buddy was helping him out with it up in Wisconsin, and they went most of the way through it, and then he didn't want to deal with it anymore. Job and his life got in the way, and then his buddy bought it off of him the rest of the way, moved it up to Wisconsin. He did some more work to it, sat up there for years, same thing happened, life got in the way, kids, all that other stuff, and he didn't want it, called his other buddy back up, and then he said, yeah, I got time, I'd like to do it again. And then they hauled it back down here, and then he worked on it a little bit more, and then it sat again. So I don't believe this thing was ever really fully on the road for long periods of time, because it was constantly in a state of flux of being worked on and towed back and forth. And then when I got it, it was in running condition. It was okay. It was a little scary at first, so I decided to finish it all off and go through the whole thing again. And it didn't take that much, but it was some work. So the first summer was probably a good month and a half working on it, going through it all and getting it drivable. And after that, I just drove it, and that's what I still do.